Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to another Collage Live Online. Thank you for joining us. I'm Christopher Kurtz, coordinator for Collage Institute, and today we're going to be talking about Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Collage Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to support artists, curators, and writers who seek to study, document, and disseminate ideas that deepen our understanding of collage as a medium, a genre, a community, and a 21st century movement. We operate a number of initiatives meant to bring together community, investigate critical issues, and raise collage's standing in the art world. We are able to do these projects thanks to our wonderful supporters. So if you are able, please consider making a donation or joining our Silver Scissors and Golden Glue societies. And more information about that can be found on our website. This is the third book from our collage and illustration project, which is a series of residencies, publications, discussions, and exhibitions that takes vintage public domain stories and recontextualizes them for a 21st century audience through the use of collaborative collage illustrations. The book is now available for purchase on our website. Something else we did this time around was create a limited edition folio of prints. The folio Frankenstein 21st Century consists of 24 15 by 11 collage prints on 100-pound Strathmore Bristol vellum paper in an edition of 5. The folio is presented in an archival box with a label, a guide, and a numbered title page signed by the curator. One set of folios is included in Collage Institute's archive, and the remaining folios are available for sale with the proceeds going to support the mission of Collage Institute. The folio is also available as a traveling exhibition. If anyone's interested, please send us an email to inquire about exhibiting or purchasing a folio. You can see some lovely pictures of those prints right here. Frankenstein is a widely recognized horror novel in Western literature, sometimes considered a proto-science fiction novel that tells the story of a young scientist who becomes obsessed with uncovering the secret to creating life. However, he soon realizes that his aspiration of playing God comes with severe repercussions. Throughout the story, the author delves into various human flaws such as grief, pride, an insatiable thirst for knowledge, secrecy, and shame. The protagonist, Victor Frankenstein, must confront the aftermath of bringing unnatural life into the world, leading to tragic events that jeopardize everything he values. In August 2023, Nancy Bernardo and I, along with the help of guest speaker E. Francis Kohler, led 15 international collage artists through a virtual residency where we analyzed the story, discussed themes, uncovered symbols, and asked questions to visually interpret this seminal text for a modern audience. Today, we are joined by a handful of those artists. And in a minute, I'm going to ask the artists to talk about this process. Before I do, I was hoping we could just go around and everyone introduce themselves. Say your name, where you are right now, and a brief sentence about your artist practice, for example. I'm Christopher Kurtz. I'm a storyteller, game designer, and collage artist in New Orleans, and my work focuses on themes of empathy and environmentalism through the lens of speculative fiction. And I'm going to stop sharing so everyone can see our lovely faces, and I'll just pick some people to go. Ella, would you go first?
Of course, thank you very, very much. My name is Elżbieta Stonek, in short, Ella. I'm originally from Poland, but I've been living in Berlin, in Germany, for the last 3 years. I do collage after work. I have a full-time job, and I work mostly in monochrome or in black and white, both digitally and analog. My style is very, very surreal, also quite photographic, with blurred lines between elements and reality and fiction. So I publish a lot in magazines, as well as design covers for drum and bass Berlin-based bands.
Thank you. And Marta, would you like to keep us going?
Yes, my name is Marta Janik. I live in Warsaw right now, so we are having a nice evening. It's dark, so it's perfect for a Frankenstein discussion and for book launch. I do most of the time analog collage, and I do also digital. I started to do animation because I wanted to move my collages a few years ago, so this is what I'm working on right now. And for me, it's very interesting to see collage as an illustrative tool. So for me, collage as an illustration is a very interesting thing. And this residency helped me to develop this. So soon I will call myself not collage artist, but an illustrator. So yes, so nice to see you. All my love to the audience as well, and enjoy the evening.
Thank you, Marta. Yeah, you can all call yourselves illustrators now. Official title, fully yours. Suzanne, would you like to go next?
Sure, Chris. I'm Suzanne Greenberg. I'm in New York City. I'm a mixed media collage artist. And I'm also an activist in neurodiverse legislation. I try to express, I myself am bipolar, and I try to express my full range of emotions through my work so that other people can get a better understanding of what it means to be neurodiverse, that there are not only bad aspects to it, but there are beautiful, euphoric aspects to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suzanne. Maureen, would you go next, please?
Oh, hi. Greetings from the morning in San Francisco. We've got sun here. So anyway, I have to say that I've probably been a collage artist for longer than I started making collage. I grew up with a mother who took me to every junkyard and thrift store in town. So basically, I grew up in LA going to all these sites and looking at things. I spent time in the commercial side of the graphics industry. And it wasn't really until I got locked down and was forced to just be walking around outside, picking up things that I found and turning them into collages, that I got more serious about it. So it's been nice. San Francisco is a sweet place to be because they have lots of crazy little galleries that'll show my stuff. This residency was definitely a push into being more public, and I really appreciate working with you guys, all the artists, and you for kind of cleaning up my act a bit. So thank you. So,
Thank you. Anthony, would you go next, please?
Hello, everybody. It's great to see everybody on the panel. Hello to the audience. I am an Irish collage artist, a psychotherapist, poet, also a storyteller, and I'm really interested in monsters. Monsters is a source of wonder. Wonder is a general kind of emotional experience or a general kind of experience in the world. And this really struck out to me as a residency because I'm also really interested in how we kind of deepen our experience of the visual arts through text. And this kind of worked back the other way. So it was really great to work with people and to read something with the express intention of illustrating it, because it was a much more visual way of reading, right? Looking for opportunities to illustrate and having a lot of internal kind of visualization come up as I read through the book, which was, yeah, a bit different to other times I've read through books. So
Spoilers, that's a question I'm going to ask later.
Okay. Sorry about that. Love your mask in the background, Chris. Hello, everybody. And yeah, that's me for the moment.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a costume piece that my wife made for a couple Mardi Gras ago, and I felt appropriate and had to bring it out. David, would you introduce yourself next, please?
Let me get off of mute here. Yeah, David Edward Johnson. I am a mixed media assemblage and collage artist out of New York State, Skaneateles, New York, Finger Lakes region. And yeah, I'm interested in the birth and death of the American dream, identity, loss, and desire. I try and express all that through the work. I sum up my work in three words: abstraction, deconstruction, and definition. And so, yeah, this was an amazing opportunity to kind of explore a lot of different things. And I just loved not only working with everybody here, but just exploring the text. So it was an amazing opportunity. It was really, really cool.
Thank you, David. Rebecca, can you go next?
I'm Rebecca Steiner. I live and work out of Lyme, Connecticut. Sunny afternoon here also. My background is actually art history. I worked at galleries, museums, did graduate work in art history, and sort of dabbled in collage until the pandemic. And like Maureen, all of a sudden I was just kind of took over and sort of birthed the practice. And so what I used to write about, I now translate into images. And it's actually been very interesting to sort of see the other side and work on the other side. And it's been a fascinating process. This residency was totally transformative for me. Having gone from just working alone to all of a sudden being in the midst of this community of incredibly talented, prolific, amazing artists. I am an analog collage artist. I sort of dabble in digital and am branching out into assemblage. But I really do love analog. I love the cutting. I love the pasting. I love the images. And my work really is about gender construction, constructions of beauty, construction of feminine identity, deconstructing the female identity, and also gender construction as a whole. I have a son who's transmasculine, and so I find that there's a lot of overlap with different themes that I find myself exploring. But this residency was amazing. The collaborative aspect, I actually initially, truth be told, almost left because I was so overwhelmed at first and so intimidated and so blown away by everyone, how prolific everyone, how free everyone was. And then something kind of happened. And I think you're pairing us into groups. My team was so supportive and I kind of just leaned into it and all of a sudden couldn't stop and just kind of became sort of, I don't want to say intoxicated, but just seduced by the challenge. And I was just determined that I was going to meet the challenge. And I found it really, again, to be transformative. Just so exciting to reach so far out of my comfort zone, so far into areas that I would normally not explore in terms of themes, in terms of materials, in terms of compositions. So I want to thank everybody. Like, I will hold this group so dear in my heart forever. Like, this gang is just everything. Just an amazing community.
I want to change my answer.
Wait, and an amazing opportunity. You want to change your answer, David?
No, I'm so glad that you didn't
that
leave.
was
I'm
great.
glad you stuck around and locked in because, I mean, you were an invaluable member of the group as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. I'm so glad. I literally at the end of it, I felt like I had walked through fire. I'd like walked through with I don't want to say battle because it wasn't. It was, walk through like a transformative gate of heaven opening up or something. I mean, it was just really illuminating. And I feel forever changed as sort of a person and a willingness to take risks. And also in my art, this just opened me up. So eternal spring.
Thank you. Thank you. And Jessica, I think you're here too, but with your camera off. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sorry, I was running late and got stuck in traffic.
That's okay.
Amazing. Yeah. Hi, my name is Jessica Tranbo. I'm located in Boston. I majored in English Lit and art and never read Frankenstein, and this was a really great opportunity to dive into it. And I'm really excited I did with this group. It's been really fun. I have been talking nonstop about it. I work at the literature section at MIT, and I've actually sat in on at least 2 classes now where all these STEM majors are told to collage, and they jumped into it. I taught one student. I know she's been really excited to collage Frankenstein now. So it's been really cool to just kind of intersect sci-fi and goth and collaging and just kind of having those things intersect with this residency. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. That's awesome to hear. I love that. Okay, so I have some questions prepared for us. And if anyone else in the audience has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or use the Q&A function on the Zoom. And if we don't answer them as we go, then we'll do like a brief audience Q&A portion at the end. And if there are any other artists that were part of this residency that are in the audience, feel free to sound off in the chat as well. That happens sometimes. But so to talk just a bit about this residency and the process. So we met over four or five weeks, I think. And we had weekly Zoom calls for 2 hours each week. And we also used Slack, which is just kind of like an online messaging service. And we had book discussion prompts. We had collaborative activities, like Rebecca said. We paired people up and made collaborative groups, and we kind of switched things up throughout the weeks as we went. Um, and it's a really fun process. And like I said, this was the third time that we had done it. And every time there's a sort of an alchemy, a sort of magic that I can't predict exactly how it's going to work. Um, and so I just love watching it kind of unfold over the course of that month. And so I'm kind of thinking that this event right now can be sort of a window into what those discussions were like. Let's keep it a little informal. I want you to feel free to interject and respond to each other, and hopefully the audience can kind of get a sense of what it was like in those book discussions that we had. So to start us off, I think many people came into this residency having already read the book, or at the very least having knowledge of the story in one form or another. It's kind of unavoidable. Frankenstein is this huge pop culture icon, something guest speaker E. Francis Kohler dug into in his talk, like sort of the history of Frankenstein as this, myth. What preconceptions did you have starting the residency, or agendas you might have had, certain themes or topics that you wanted to push? And how were those either reinforced or subverted through a second reading and through the discussions and collaborations that took place during the residency? Anybody can go first.
Maybe I can go first. So that was my second or third time when I read the novel. So the first time was when I was a teenager, very, very angsty. Obviously, then it was very easy to immerse myself and also identify with the creature, not because I felt I looked like them, but because of this alienation. It's very easy to see the creature as an innocent victim. However, this time there was this weird discovery of also giving them agency. Not seeing everything only black and white, but also the shades of gray. This decision, very, very cold-blooded to become evil, despite being prompted by unpleasant events. So for me, that was actually quite fascinating to somehow read it as a very young and an adult person, and through experience or age or even place where I am, to notice different shades. So that was a big surprise, because when I applied for the residency, I felt very, I felt very, very naive and very enthusiastic. Yeah, this is a great novel. These are going to be those stunning illustrations. However, then when I couldn't really find myself anymore, like really me as a person in the novel, that created a kind of, maybe that's too big of a word, a kind of identity crisis. How to really get into it, how to really illustrate it if I might not necessarily feel it fully. So that was the unexpected challenge, because the one of collaborating and making something big, something public, and not only for myself, that was the known one. But I would say this another read, unintentionally more critical. It truly created more difficulties, but also maybe also different directions in which I brought the pieces we were jointly creating.
Very nice. Can I add something?
Yeah, please do.
Yes, because when you spoke of reading it earlier as a youth, as a young person, and then as an adult, I had the same experience. And especially, I used to read things when I was preteen or teenager, and it was like eating chocolate. I would just eat, read the book, and then sort of forget about it and have a superficial interpretation, and then I could say I read it. So in my mind, it was probably the Boris Karloff version. So rereading it as a parent, as a woman, as a person who sees things that are unjust, I all of a sudden was just like, oh my God, this guy is the worst father on the planet. He's, there's just all this stuff in it that, and I got caught up in some of the smaller characters like Justine, the injustice of all that. So that was interesting because I honestly went into it thinking, I'm great at making creepy things. This will be perfect. So it was funny to take that and move it in a slightly different direction while still maintaining my creepiness. So I have to agree, as a rereader, it was neat. So
I want to build on that. For me, I was very much the same way. I've actually read it numerous times, but before this, every time I was very focused on the horror aspects of it. And so that was what kind of always came through for me. Upon looking at it, and I was aware of the layers of meaning, but it was just so different when you have to interpret it. I think it just raises a depth of it that I was just not thinking of before in so many ways. And I think, it's interesting. This fall, I said, you know what? That was such an amazing experience. I'm going to try to do it myself for another kind of 19th century novel. Pick something, Dracula, whatever. I couldn't do it. I didn't feel necessarily the layers of meaning that I felt with this. And that was what just propelled so much exploration here personally for me and what I certainly saw in the group. And that was fascinating for me too, was just seeing other people's interpretations because all of a sudden I would see somebody would make a comment in Slack or something. And all of a sudden I would see the novel in a totally different way. And I would say, God, I missed that. How did I miss that? That's crazy. But it was really cool. So yeah, so many layers there. And building on what you're saying, I think, when I had read it before, I was so focused on the Gothic aspects and then hadn't really thought of a modern context for it. And yet it's so incredibly contemporary. Is surprisingly so. And so yeah, that was for me a big kind of eye opener in that way.
Maybe it's contemporary because we don't change that much, right?
That's true. I agree.
Victor with this, influenza thing and the creature, like Jokers with the movies being very, very recent when we started. It's very, very easy to find modern associations without even, pushing it too much, and they just come. They are present everywhere.
I agree, and I think that's because it's a human story ultimately, and that's what kind of spoke to me was that it has this universality to it that is very powerful in that way.
So maybe that's why I was seeing Frankenstein everywhere where I went.
Yes.
I mean, we started our residency in August, but I read the book maybe 2 months before, and I read it together with Anthony. And we shared our experience of reading this because, of course, I knew Frankenstein from movies. But then I wanted to know more. And then when I realized that there was a book written by an 18 years old woman, that is fascinating because I must tell you that the creature touched me so deeply. And I was really astonished, surprised. I couldn't believe that. Okay, because we even call creature Frankenstein, but creature is creature. Of course, we can interpret this the way we want, but the creature touched me so deeply that it was even more human than humans in the book. And the moments in the book which I liked the most are the moment where the creature wants to understand our human world. Like the creature wants to learn the language. So he's full of hope that the people will appreciate him, not looking at his physical features, but just appreciating who he really is. And I enjoyed every single moment of the book, even tiny details, because I don't know if you remember, but there is a moment when the creature makes a really conscious decision not to eat meat, but only vegetables. So it was really, from many points of view, just extraordinary journey for me. Thank you.
Yes. No, for sure. I can totally see that.
Yeah, I think something that was really interesting as well for me was I joined because I'd never read Frankenstein, and I joined because I was interested in monsters, and that I'd written stories around monsters, just kind of humorous tale, and created my own. And I had this idea in that kind of pop culture idea of Frankenstein's monster or creature. And as Martha is alluding to there, actually, he is a much richer, or it's a much richer kind of deeper character, very sensuous, very innocent in the beginning, does terrible things in the latter part of the book. But that's part of the great tragedy as well, to kind of witness that transformation. You know, I know, Martha, we illustrated that first discovery of fire, right? And it's just this moment where he comes across, or it comes across a fire burning in the forest and burns its hand with it and doesn't really understand how it can be the source of both so much warmth and so much pain, right? It's just so much kind of rich experience throughout the book. And I noticed actually after reading and after the residency, I don't really call it Frankenstein's monster anymore. I kind of like catch myself and it's the creature, right? You know, I don't really want to refer to it as a monster anymore because I think that's a much it kind of negates or takes away from the fullness or richness of the character, you know, which before reading the book, by the way, was in my mind also just kind of this slow, stupid character, right? This kind of just a monster, right? Almost zombie-like, but there's much more of an inner life there. So that was really great. Yeah.
And the book is always better than the movie, right? Like in none of the movies I saw the creature reading the Werther of Goethe. Like it's really like what struck me, like the literature the creature reads, or the passion, how he wants to learn the language. It was, these were the moments most beautiful for me.
It's funny. I totally agree. Not only the poetic story arc there, but also it's funny that you say that, Anthony. Even creating a Instagram post for this, I specifically wrote the creature. I caught myself and specifically wrote the creature in like the write up for the Instagram post because I was like, that's what it is. It is not the monster. It is not anything but that. Yeah, so I totally identify with that. Yeah.
Um, I'd just like to say, I was really drawn to the residency because of the fact that we were going to do collaborative collage, because I really love collaboration and the experience, the opportunity to do that with all these amazing artists was just a thrill. And I really liked the parallel between that we were doing collaborative collages and the fact that Frankenstein himself was a collage made out of body parts from different people. So that parallel was sort of always in the back of my mind. Also, the moment in the book where the creature, Frankenstein, sees himself in a pool of water. And it's the first time he sees what he looks like. And it's the first time that he sees how different he is from the people around him. And I could really relate to that moment because for like my entire life, when I look at myself, I feel alienated. And I think a lot of modern people feel very alienated from like the posts they see of happy families on Instagram, because we're all comparing our insides to other people's outsides. And I don't know, that moment in the book really, really struck me. But there were lots of moments in the book that are totally modern in their applicability. I mean, you could totally relate to so many things. And as Marta said, it was written by this 18-year-old woman in the 19th century, which is just mind-blowing. Anyway, thank you.
You know, at the moment, oh, sorry, Jessica, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
You sure? Well, I actually, so I like respond to everybody, but that moment that you're talking about, Suzanne, I did a collage of Frankenstein, like taking the mask off, you know, and it was that moment of who he perceived himself to be, and then the realization of what's not, and the beauty that he saw in himself versus that image that the world saw, and that felt like a breaking moment for me, for the creature. I had actually, like Jessica, I was an English major originally and never read Frankenstein, I don't think. I mean, I may have glossed over it, but I was so excited not only about the collaborative, I was excited about reading Frankenstein, felt like it was such an exciting collaborative opportunity. And then in the residency, I love the speakers that came in, and the speaker who did the history of Frankenstein and had that amazing PowerPoint. And I ended up screenshotting parts of the PowerPoint and using some of those images in the collages, which was so exciting to, you know, to sort of be walking through the book in real time as it's being translated cinematically, visually, reinterpreted. And I thought the speakers were amazing. And then David, what you were talking about with the layers and trying to kind of branch out on your own and reconstruct that experience for yourself. I actually was trying to do that as well. And I realized there's something, it's like cooking a tomato sauce or something. You need those ingredients. Everyone's pulling apart these different layers, and each perspective that you have, someone else brings in another perspective. And so the layers just run so deep, not only in translating the text, but also with the collages. And, you know, with the collaborations, what I found so wonderful, and, you know, all of you were so amazing. I was paired with Anthony and Maureen, who were just amazing in terms of seeing what I was trying to do. And then their suggestions, you know, to blow figures up, to shrink figures, to do this, to do that, and to collaborate and work together. It was just, I felt like it really brought my work, my vision, my ideas, my understanding of the story to a whole new level. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. The one that Anthony and I did, where I had to construct a city, I was again so intimidated that I dropped everything. Like I canceled every appointment, I rearranged stuff. For a day, that is, I literally just disappeared into the constructing of a city. And it was so exciting. And the challenge was so wonderful. And wanting to honor the talent and the, you know, the professionalism of another artist, to live up to, you know, to live up to honoring them, I guess. I really found really enriching, I guess. And upon doing it and finishing with something I really liked and being able to hand off something I was proud of was just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because I mean, like Frankenstein is the novel. Probably there is not a better one to work on it collaboratively. So different artists were working on one piece. So as Susanne said, basically Frankenstein, I mean, the creature is also a collage work. So it's almost cheating to choose this book to illustrate with a collage, but it would not really work. And maybe this is the reason why it did not work for you, Becca and David, that when you do it in one style, in your own style, it's maybe too smooth, too seamless. So you don't really see the roughness of the creature, the elements that appear absolutely contradictory, like not fitting and yet somehow working together when two people bring them in. So maybe that's the secret and the answer why it's not the same to work on it on your own.
Well, no, I can totally see that. And I will say every collaboration I participated in was better than if I did it myself. Every time I was like, oh my God, I didn't think about that. Like, I love where this went, and I wouldn't have taken it there myself, but it's better overall. So that was an incredible thing in and of itself. Because a lot of times as artists, we're working solo in a studio. I know I spend a lot of time alone, you know, I mean, it is what it is. But This was just amazing from that standpoint because I honestly felt like, there was a nugget of an idea, and then to see somebody else's take on it was just amazing, and it really elevated the work in so many ways.
Yeah,
Well,
it definitely helped to have that, to see what other people were doing. There were so many different styles and just levels or ways of doing things. Like the one that you and I worked on with the gallows, I
Oh, I
had
love
I
that.
had all the pieces put together, and it probably would have been this sepia tone something or other. Man, you took it to Mars. I love that image.
I love that image too. I
I'm
featured
just
it in a
like,
post
oh
yesterday. Yes, I love that image. It's a wonderful image, and you had all the pieces and parts there.
yeah.
That's the amazing thing, and I wouldn't have gone there necessarily, and I wouldn't have seen that. So I do think that's amazing in and of itself. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another piece. I wish Anissa was here, my other San Francisco person. Uh, we met up at a coffee shop when we realized we were in the same town. And she gave me a pile of pieces of paper, and I gave her a pile of pieces of paper. And there were just some things that I had that I wasn't sure what to do with. And she put together this thing that I was just like, yeah, this is so great. Like I wouldn't have done that. It was
No,
neat.
for sure. Yeah. I had the same thing with Rosie, who isn't here. When I had done a piece, it was quite heavy-handed. It was interesting, but it was really heavy-handed. She took it, stripped away so much, and I was like, "Oh my God, that was right. That was the right thing to do." And to be honest, I that was one of the first pieces I had created, but I just didn't like it. It just wasn't there. And so I said, "Hey, interested? You want to do anything with it?" And she did, and it was so much better. Just fascinating to see how that process worked. Yeah, for sure.
And one more thing, what I really liked about working with Rebecca, the same thing where I would tend to believe it or not, I am actually more in the less is more mode, although you would know that from what I'm doing right now. But what Rebecca gave me was the freedom I'd have something and I'd be like, okay, this is pretty close. And she, again, just bomb it, and
Yeah, well,
all,
total maximalism. That's
yes,
what you
but
get
your
from
sense
me.
of humor and
Minutia
what
and maximalism.
yeah, and I was just like, and certainly no, I was not in the world of haiku, but I wasn't that minimalist. But I just love the freedom that you added to it, the brightness and overall sense of humor, and those pieces, I love it. Yeah. So
Sometimes
I
more is more.
yeah, I just saw this
Sometimes more is
great.
not more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, I agree.
Now
that
I
was
I
totally
just
must
love.
admit that was maybe the most difficult thing for me to really let go and to let somebody else into the world that I envisioned. So I don't remember who it was. I think it was Anissa who told me that she was quite afraid to touch what I was working on because she saw my works as very very intentional. So those who follow me like know what she and I what we are talking about. But and that was tough. That was really really tough to trust others that they will really take it in an appropriate direction, and also to enter and continue some things that other had started. So I had the pleasure to do it a couple of times since the residency. It's still extremely challenging, but I think I'm getting better and better at it. So if we can do it once again, I will probably collaborate even more.
Heck yes, I
I wanted
love
to
that.
say one thing about the building on what you just said and what everybody's talking about. The thing that struck me is the amazing generosity of spirit of everyone. There's just such and such trust in handing something, and you feel so vulnerable with the beginnings of your work. And Maureen, oh my God, the fact that you were liking what I was doing. I mean, you're so talented. Your work is so good. And it was just so empowering. But that feeling of trust and that feeling of generosity as you're handing off your most vulnerable self, and then you watch it take off in a different direction, which is just amazing. The other thing were the files in the residency so we had, Google Drive pages where everybody just put images in and everybody shared them. And that was so amazing. And especially since a lot of the images were used a number of different times, but each time it was new, each time it was different. And even when when a few of us interpreted the same scene, they were so different that it was a different layer, or it was a second after the previous second. I mean, it was amazing to see that kind of sharing and transforming and reincarnating of these images. Wait, Jessica, you were trying to say something a while ago, and we have
I was just about to say that. I think I think I actually stepped all over you.
Yours.
Yeah.
No, now you have to say something, Jessica.
I know.
Oh God. No, the collaboration has been really amazing. I think I was struggling with a piece for Safi. We were all talking about it for a bit, and I brought it up to someone at work too, going like, I don't know where to start. The Ottoman Empire is really scary. And then we just kind of talked about text too. So this Frankenstein continues to haunt. I feel like all of our works, it seems like every time I do research now, I'm like, this is so many notes of Frankenstein. Or I've been watching Twin Peaks again, and the way that the dads all start crying reminds me of how we were all just like, these are very supportive father figures that, you know, we all realized at the same time while reading Frankenstein, either over or for the first time. So no, I just didn't really enjoy deep reading it like this because I haven't done that in a while. And I'm, like David said, it's going to be hard to find texts that matches up to this level, especially since Victor was like 18 when he was creating his first creature. He didn't even finish college. And then Mary was just 18 when she wrote it too. There's just so many layers to it that like we touched on it as much as we could, I feel like, with how we collaborated and exploded over this text.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Okay. So the audience would like to see some of the images. Now, I have a few. I actually kind of already paged through the ones that I had picked at the beginning of this event. But maybe I'll reshare and we can just kind of talk about some of those. But there are over 75 collage illustrations in this book, so it's impossible for me to show them all and also as we're talking about them, like pull them up. So you'll have to bear with us a little bit. But let me just show some of the images that I've already gathered, and we can just talk about them a little bit. Okay.
So amazing.
All right. Do we remember who worked on this one?
I was working on this one with Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this is what I started. And at the beginning, oh, Jesus, I found it in the archives of an ancient museum somewhere online, like the left part of the image first, like just the hand. So at the beginning, it was just the background was white. There was this hand trying to touch the plant. So there was this plant. So I just was trying to show that the creature is trying to know the nature, know different names of plants, of birds. So that's why I also put a little bird on the shoulder. So this is how it started. And then, Anthony, tell something. Tell how you finish it.
Yeah, so I was looking at this and I was reading a book about medieval kind of triptychs or images at the time, and I'm also interested in storytelling and comic books. And the image you sent me, Martha, I just thought it was a great opportunity to try and show the passage of time through kind of three-panel composition here, because actually I can read I might read the passage that we illustrated, if that's okay, because it just really gets it across quite easily or quite well. Just several changes of day and night passed, and the orbit had greatly lessened, which I began to distinguish with my sensations from each other. I gradually saw plainly the clear stream that supplied me with the drink, and the trees that shaded me with their foliage. I was delighted when I first discovered that a pleasant sound which often saluted my ears proceeded from the throats of the little winged animals who had often intercepted the light from my eyes. I also began to observe with greater accuracy the forms that surrounded me and to perceive the boundaries of the radiant roof of light which canopied me. So we were really talking about, Martha, when we were discussing it, that kind of sense of wonder and amazement that the creature is after leaving the lab on his own, completely alienated, and has to define the whole world for himself. So I think this is something that we capture quite well in this image, that these probably first days or moments really in that learning process, still innocent, still wondering, what am I? I don't think that the creature has an encounter with the human beings at all at this point, but still felt very much that they were other. So this is what we were working on there.
Thank you. Well, that's the cover.
Wait, can we talk about the cover? Because I think what
Yeah,
David did
yeah.
was so
Let me actually find it.
beautiful. In the way that you had all these, you combined bits of images of collages from everyone, and I thought that was just so beautiful and meaningful, and sort of again underscored the layers of not only the text but our interpretation of the text. And again, it just showcased such incredible generosity of spirit.
Well, I'll say the reason that cover is as successful as it is because of your guys' work. It works incredibly well because of all the amazing things that you guys created. It's funny, I've talked about this image a ton with people in general, and that's I think one of the central things of why collage makes so much sense for this text is that the monster in and of itself is, or monster, I say that, the creature. See there, I'm catching myself there. The creature in and of itself is a collage, is an assemblage of sorts. And at the base level, that really speaks to this medium. For me, I was just so enamored, I guess, with what everybody was creating, that this was really an homage to what you guys had all done in so many ways. And I felt like I wanted the cover to be that. I wanted the cover to be all of us. And I think that really is why this works incredibly well, is that this feels cohesive as a composition, but really it's the individual work that makes it interesting in and of itself. And I think it also speaks to the layers that we see. There's a bunch of stories here, and I think that really comes through. We talked about a lot of layers to the novel and the meaning. All of that kind of is captured, I think, here, hopefully. So it was a ton of fun to work on it, but it really worked so well because of the amazing work that you guys did.
Does anybody see any pieces here in this cover illustration that they wanna point out and talk about?
One person talked about the discovery of fire. I believe that is the shoulder. What would that be? The right-hand shoulder? Yes, exactly. Now, you guys tell me, am I right about that? Yeah.
Yes, you're right. It's again the collage we did together with Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what Anthony started and I finished. So Anthony created the best creature figure I could imagine. Like, I love what have you guys seen the face of the creature? Like, this is amazing for me. So yes, so we see here the creature, and I added the fire, and the fire is even in his veins. Yeah.
I think I remember when you were posting in Slack, the whole process. So I think it was this one when Anthony posted the creature and the background was blank. So it was really just the creature for Marta to work on, and then all the further steps and how it really blossomed into this all encapsulating fire. That was just incredible. And the fact that we could see the true before and after, it was amazing, because it does not happen often when you can really see, like, this is step A, step B, step C. So
yeah, and I remember David saying
the whole experience.
Yes, and I remember David asking, "Is this the fire I put on Google Disk?" Yes, it is the fire.
I love it. I love it.
Well, I think for me, the cover too, the other beauty of it is just that I feel like the way you created the cover, David, just kind of showcases the whole project. It's like we're not just, we're reinterpreting Frankenstein. This is a reinterpretation. This is a collage interpretation. And so I feel like you showcase right up front kind of, this new way of seeing the book or new ways of seeing the book, and immediately cast it as a contemporary interpretation, which it's just gorgeous.
And I have to say, how about this color? Like the color in the work is amazing because it sets off this black and white background. That in and of itself makes it just feel so vibrant. It's funny, we just talked a lot about fire. These are very elemental. These collages that everybody kind of worked on feel very elemental to me. They feel very kind of like the five elements. It's amazing in that regard. So yeah, it just had a ton of pop. I gotta say, I when I was working on it, I was like, God, you guys gave me a lot to work with. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fire
And,
is
and
on
here
the chest on the
yes.
left side. Yeah, it's like a heart, right? Heart is on here.
And here the creature does not look like a creature stitched from different elements, but really like a mosaic. So there's a lot of beauty in this lack of symmetry.
I agree.
Also, there's no face. You didn't create a face, so the creature becomes a composite of the experiences and the emotions and everything that transpires through the course of the text and the creature's life. I mean, I think that's very special that you didn't create a face, because the face for me always seems to be the thing that makes you recognize Frankenstein. And here you've left it very open-ended.
And I think it doesn't need it. Like I think the work of the individuals and groups that created these pieces speaks in and of itself. I don't think anybody, the interesting thing is, I don't think anybody would confuse this. When you see it, it feels like Frankenstein nonetheless. It didn't necessarily need bolts in the neck and stitches all over to feel like Frankenstein. It feels like Frankenstein. We understand that it is. And I think again, it's just the work of what everybody else created.
But if you had done the bolts in the neck and all of that, then you would have been telling us what to think. And instead, you leave the interpretation open to the reader, and you don't fall back on the tropes. You open it up with that choice, I think.
No, yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And I think that was the revelation of the novel this time for me, was that it wasn't, and not that it was necessarily bolts in the neck, but in the novel. But I think it was the fact that it was so human, and this feels like a human silhouette to me. And that was the goal anyway. I'm thrilled it came through.
I wanted to say too, I really liked the writing texture in the back too, and the oozing, because you forget this is all letters that Victor and his sister exchanged to each other. But then the oozing too, it's because the elements of the text just kind of comes out into the shape, into what we've created out of the text too.
I love that. This is actually Mary Shelley's own writing in her hand. So I was able to I can't remember who shared that. Boy, who shared that? That there was an archive, and I want to say it was Library of Congress or something.
Might have been something Nancy brought to the table.
Maybe it was like, holy Toledo, this is amazing. And to root it that closely to her own hand, and especially a female hand at that time, there was just a lot of power to that. So yeah, that was and I'm thrilled you brought that up, because it was an intrinsic part of creating this for sure.
Let's take a look at some other images, and then so this is actually what the full cover looks like, and then it continues on to the back of the book as well, which is just like a fun little way to lay it out. Let's see. Do we have folks who worked on this one here?
I did.
Do you remember what the process was like for this, or what went into making this?
Actually, I've worked on so many things since the residency, I do not remember that.
That's totally fair.
The thing that I'll say about this one, not to jump in, but I do feel like there were so many pieces that to me felt almost like music remixing in that regard. Like people were sampling from a variety of different sources and creating things that were so harmonic. I think this is very interesting on a lot of levels.
That's the Frankenstein head. That's Anthony. Anthony, it's your creature's head.
I think so, yes.
I love that creature, Anthony.
Sure. I think something this was really interesting. Before having read the book, I had imagined a lot of lightning bolts, right, for the birth of Frankenstein, or birth of the creature, I should say. But actually, when you read the book, it's a very quiet moment. There's no real description of what that process is. And then there's just a sentence that the creature rolls open his eye, right? So we had a lot of investigation or conversation around what happened, what does that look like? So I think, Suzanne, we were depicting the surgery. He describes instilling the creature with the spark of life or something like that. So in the bottom left-hand corner is just in that kind of separate window, I had depicted the surgery, right? The kind of installation of the spark of life. And the portrait of the creature above was the first piece I had made for the residency, which was a really nice process because it was analog collage. I'd started with the skull as a base. I had a really nice book of human anatomy. And then I just started to layer, like cut muscle and cut bone and layer each element on top of the skull until I built up a face, right? So I was listening to, I think, Jacqueline Pook, which was a recommendation of David, really haunting, perfect album for this. So I had like a fun Saturday at the very beginning, really replicating the Frankenstein process, right? Just building a creature out of all of these different parts that I was cutting, but out of paper. I just want to be clear on that. But anyway, yeah. And then Suzanne, I think you were also just creating the scene around those two elements here for the spark of life. But there's several images, I think, of that same process. There's several different works were created during the residency because it was just such a pivotal scene, but so open-ended to interpretation, right? Because there was no description, yeah.
My part was analog mixed media. The swirling multicolored lines coming down to Anthony's picture in the lower left are actual electric wires. And then the bird on the upper right is sort of that just the I can't think of the right word, the flutter of life. I don't know, that's not the right word. I can't think of the right word. But just, when a bird takes off, there's just that moment that's so alive. That's sort of how I pictured the creature coming alive.
Yeah, and I think you're answering, Suzanne. Somebody had asked that question, what is this? And for my pieces, the portraiture is in the top of the image. That was analog collage, but actually this in the window is on the bottom left was digital. And Suzanne, you were sending amazing work because it looked like photography of sometimes textiles or assemblage, which we were kind of maybe working then on the image. I don't know if it was a scan or a photograph, but you sent me some pieces that were just direct images of textiles that you had made. So there's a whole lot gone into this, a whole lot of different techniques.
A beautiful piece. Let's see what else we've got. And this is one of the prints from the folio. Does anybody here work on this one?
Yeah, this was an analog piece. This is a 30 by 40 painting, actually. I call it a painting. It's a mixed media work. It was really exploring Victor's relationship with nature. And ultimately, if you attempt to buck nature, nature bucks back. And so it was that kind of sense of the individual attempting to assert themselves against nature in many ways. This piece actually sold in New York City, and the people that purchased it were huge Frankenstein fans. That sounds bizarre, but
That's
they really liked
awesome.
the piece. And then I said, this is actually, I told them about the residency and the rest of it, and they were like, "Oh my God, we had no idea. We love the piece, but now that we hear that, we definitely want to purchase the piece." But it was it. I just had a ton of fun with this. The notion of using text throughout. There's so many different things that kind of go into this. There's actually, as a kid, it's funny because it was something that I got. I had a subscription to Hulk, the comic, as a kid. One of the pages here, you can see it kind of mid on the left-hand side. That was actually a page from one of the comics from when I was a kid. There's a bunch of different things kind of going on here. I loved trying to embody these. We talked a lot about digital versus analog. I worked both ways on this residency, and I think this piece kind of spans a little bit of that. And so yeah, it was a ton of fun to create this piece.
Oh, this is the fire one that we were talking about
Yes,
earlier. So
yes,
you get a
beautiful,
better view of that one.
beautiful.
It is a beautiful piece. Um, and then this is the other piece that I had. Who worked on this piece?
That's mine. I'm sure I had input from Anthony and Maureen on it. So you guys, speak up, but I realized that I did a couple actually of Victor Frankenstein in the lab. And I just felt like that was an important sort of marker to illustrate. And so I blew up these, I feel like it was in a fashion magazine. There were these pictures of spines as a backdrop, but I ended up blowing them up into different pieces and layering them. And then just kind of, sleuthing out and shrinking and blowing up all the different components on the table. I don't know where the skull came from. And then actually Victor Frankenstein was, in doing art history work, I was always really interested in fashion and art. And I have this really thick book. I've actually started to cut it up for this residency, but it's all just, mode and designs in the 18th and 19th century. And so I felt like the male figure, I think there's another one that I made using a figure from that same book. But I just felt being in the laboratory and thinking about that moment, his thought process in leading up to creating the creature was important for me.
It's a nice piece. I remember you posting it and asking if you needed to do anything more, and I was like, nope. It looks good.
That
Yeah.
happened a lot actually, where people were like, "What does this need?" And we were like,
Yeah.
"I don't know. It's pretty good as is." Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This has a wonderful sense of rhythm to it. And I think that really comes through. I also think this has a wonderful sense of texture. So yeah, this is a really, really successful piece.
And especially the warmth of the table, the warmth of the drinks, and even the skull is oddly warm compared to the background and the figure. So it pops. It's a really nice piece.
I agree.
Tom in the audience asked if this is a digital or handmade or a combination.
It's an analog collage. It's handmade. Everything is cut out. The digital component is in that backdrop of all of the spines and the bones. That's just one image that I blew up and shrank and did different sizes of on photo paper and then cut up and pasted. And then I also shrank down some of the little components on the table, just using the scanner. So it's all, but then printed it and did the analog collage. But this prior to this residency, I really just kind of was very pure about sticking to just material components. And then in doing this residency and the door opening up to digital and to using the scanner and to doing all of these different things, the possibilities that one now has with scanners, with digitizing, was really exciting, because I would not have made something like this using those elements had I not been a part of this, incredible community and getting all the feedback from everybody and seeing how everyone is kind of, mixing that was exciting for me, figuring out how to mix the analog and the digital, which seems so obvious. But you just, as you were saying, David, you're like alone in your studio and you have this idea and you kind of stick with it. And all of a sudden somebody like lobs you a little gift and you're like, wow, why didn't I think of that?
That was something we talked about a lot, especially at the beginning. What are the strategies for analog artists working with digital artists and vice versa, and combining that in your own practice? And it was something that we kept kind of having to renegotiate throughout the entire process, especially like it was mentioned, Suzanne was making these great textiles and photographing them and sending those along. And it was, and you scanning things and printing things out. And there are all of these, there's so many different ways to do this work, this combination of analog and digital and this collaborating across distances, that we our hope is that in these projects, in this collage and illustration project, is we provide a laboratory in which you get to experiment with all of those different techniques. So actually this brings me to a question I wanted to ask is, what, if anything, have you taken away from the project and now incorporated into your own process or practice?
Well, I can say the digitizing, the scanning, the blowing things up huge, shrinking them really tiny, and just the limitless possibilities and the freedom of being able to use anything, which, I mean, I feel like this residency really blew open for me the possibilities and the endlessness of the possibilities. There's another image that Maureen and I worked on, where I had started stitching together the Bride of Frankenstein. I had started trying to make the Bride of Frankenstein, and Maureen, we worked together on it. But at one point I was trying to figure out how to stitch her together, and I realized, well, I'll just stitch her together. And it just kind of seemed so obvious. Why didn't I see it before? But just that the world is your oyster. Like you are, like we're all Dr. Frankenstein. Like we have the whole laboratory in front of us to do what we want. Hopefully it's mindful and thoughtful and brings good to the world and keeps innocence alive. But anyway.
I totally agree. A couple things that I took away, building on what Rebecca was saying. For me, there's a tendency sometimes when I work digital that I wanted things to be just so. I wanted them to be, and I appreciated the entropy that came from this. Like, sorry, I'm going to use a bad word, but the willingness to fuck it up. To be honest, like the willingness to just get in there and do it, that I loved. And there's a beauty there. There was an electric nature to that I think is so powerful. Also, I just love I love how this really brought forward the I don't know, there is an iconoclastic nature to what we created, and I mean that in that it's not defined by one thing or another. We define what art is, and as artists, and I think that was beautiful in terms of it didn't, whether it was digital, whether it was analog, whether it was a combination of all of them, it was art. And that was for me something that I think was very kind of affirming and reinforcing in a lot of ways, that we decide what it is, and that we, in many ways as a group, were refusing to be defined by one thing or another, by a particular medium or a particular whatever. We decide what that is, and that was powerful for me. That may sound academic to everybody, but I loved that. I thought that was really cool.
I think something that I'll bring forward and have brought forward into my practice as well is just that collaboration, right? And I think you're speaking about that, speaking a little to that, David. It's a challenge, right? To find and get in there. Rebecca, you mentioned something earlier about giving something that's so vulnerable over to somebody or receiving something that's so vulnerable over from somebody. And then maybe the trying to honor that and then also to just get into that no matter what happens, right? And to really work on that. There's the physical work, but there's the kind of work in relationship of how do you do all of that. It's really taught me a lot. It's made me feel a lot more confident about storytelling through illustration and storytelling through collage. And if it's okay that I mention freedom, Martha, that yeah. So the two of us have continued on then with the collaboration, and we've created and are creating a children's book about flea circuses, and we've entered in several competitions, and it's been kind of listed for an exhibition in Poland recently. So I haven't got it published yet, but it's looking really good, right? And that's really off the back of coming to understand how we get our visual styles to work together, and understanding that we can kind of work together on a fuller, longer project that's more in depth like that. So I don't know if you want to say something about it, but yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, yes, for me, it was the beginning of something new because I like to collaborate in general, but it's not the easiest thing for me. And I must say that when I heard that this residency will be about working together only, I was a bit of anxious, frankly speaking. So it wasn't the easiest thing for me. And I was shy. I mean, I was shy. I don't know. I just started to work together with Anthony step by step. And because it's not easy, it's not that you can work with anybody. Like there must be something, I don't know. This is a mystery. There must be something like the same kind of, I don't know, feeling or sensitivity or point of view or how you see the world. So yeah, so it wasn't easy for me. This is also maybe worthy to say that it was challenging.
Sure.
Anthony and Marta, can you guys keep us posted on your book? On
I was going to say, I want to see more about
Yeah,
that.
It's
please.
crazy. It's like,
Yeah, that's
it's like
awesome.
flea circuits. Look, guys, I will just tell you that we have Tommy Flea Jones, Brad Fleet, Jimmy Fleelong, and you
So
know,
great.
this is like
Is this all collaged?
it's
Mhm.
everything is collage, yes.
That's
Mhm.
amazing.
So I started, Anthony finished, and Anthony started, I finished, or we did separately. But and we have also written the stories and made interviews.
Can you
Mhm.
please send us the links and keep us posted? I totally
That-
want to be kept up on this.
So
For sure.
awesome.
For
Plus,
sure.
I now have grandbabies, so I might need to get a copy for them.
For sure. Luciano Pavarotti is in there as well. That's all I'm saying. So
I love it.
Wait,
yeah.
I wanted to visit something. Suzanne, well, didn't you have, was it with Anissa where you were actually mailing collages in progress back and forth?
No.
I thought you
Me
were.
and Emily Denlinger
Oh, Emily.
did some collaborative collages that way. She didn't mail them. I think she emailed them.
Oh.
Yeah. No, she mailed them. You're right.
Yeah, she
She
mailed
did
them. I
mail
remember you
them.
talking about the post
Yeah.
office,
You're right.
which I thought was so great.
Right. Yeah, those were wonderful.
Wonderful. Because you used all sorts of interesting fabrics and sequins and things.
Yeah, I use a lot of fabric in my work. Thank you.
So let's see. I barely had to ask any questions. This is probably a good insight into what our discussions were like. And we could probably keep talking about this forever, although we should probably come to a close pretty soon. Is there anything anybody wanted to talk about that they didn't get a chance to? Just want to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to say their piece.
I'm curious what other books are coming up that you're going to be illustrating.
Sure. Actually, thank you, Suzanne. That's a great segue. So we did a residency in February for Orlando by Virginia Woolf. I'm really excited about that one. And we don't know yet what our next book is going to be. We are still thinking about it. We've talked about maybe doing something like a short story rather than a novel. And or maybe like a collection of poems or something like that, maybe branching out into other forms of literature. So if anyone has any suggestions, I'd be happy to hear it. Jessica?
I got one. A Room with the View just hit public domain, so another
Oh,
Virginia Woolf.
That's great.
okay.
Hey now.
I think some E.E. Cummings would be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Mhm.
Or do like The Wasteland.
Oh my goodness, yes.
You know.
Hmm.
Well, okay, well
Or
then.
using songs by, like an album.
Oh, that would be
Like a
interesting. But it
Jimi
would have to,
Hendrix album,
well,
especially.
it would have to be public domain though.
Oh, is Jimi Hendrix public domain yet?
Probably not.
Not yet.
Oh,
We have a little time.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
gonna be, might be a while. But that is an interesting idea. And I mean, obviously we don't have a patent on illustrating public domain books. And I hope that, I mean, you said some folks have said we tried it and it didn't work out, but I would love to see it work out. So keep trying. I'd love to see more projects like this from all of y'all. Anything else? Anybody else got anything they want to say? Otherwise, I think we'll wrap it up here.
I would just like to say that I would love if our gang could kind of stay connected. I mean, this is such a lovely opportunity, and I'm just so warmed to see everybody, and it'd be great to stay connected. I mean, David, I was trying to get to Brooklyn to see your show, but I had family stuff going on. I mean, if anybody's in the Northeast on the East Coast, please, hit me up. I'd love to see you. And maybe we could like connect twice a year, 3 times a year or something, do a Zoom.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, everyone should come to Collage Fest.
Heck
There
yeah.
you go.
Love it.
I went
right.
to Collage Fest this last year and had the time of my life. It really is amazing.
Didn't you and Emily do a panel?
Yes. And I
That's-
also did, I did 2 panels.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Collage Fest is a great time. It's in June, middle of June. I don't have the exact dates in my head right now, but it's probably on our website.
I had a blast.
It would be great to see you all there. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you everybody so much for being a part of this project, for being here today, for helping bring this book to life.
It's alive.
It's alive.
Exactly.
So if you don't have one yet, go get your copy. Tell everyone about it.
Yes.
I'm hoping this becomes the official version of Frankenstein that everyone wants to get in the future.
I love it. I love
The
it.
cult version.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've ordered 8 copies already. So.
Yeah. I want people to be like, "Oh, did you see that Collage
added up
version?"
40 people, so I'm still counting.
Excellent. All
Yeah.
right.
I
Thank you,
wanted
everybody.
to ask about going to bookstores, how to approach bookstores.
That's a good question. Let's talk about that after this call. 'Cause
Okay,
I
great.
don't know exactly, but yes, let's talk about that. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night or morning
so
or
much.
day.
Happy holidays,
Bye.
everybody.
All right, happy holidays.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.